Hi, everybody. Welcome to Small Steps, Big Life. My name is Nathan Aswell, and I'm based in the Vancouver, British Columbia area. And this show is all about celebrating people who are living big lives one small step at a time. And today, it is my joy to have as a guest Molly Lord, who's based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I'm just going to leave it to Molly to tell you. Well, I love the tagline that you have on your website, which is Renegade Educator turned Music and Mind Master. So we'll get to all that. But before we get all there, just what would you like to tell people off the top about yourself? Are you from Colorado Springs, or are you like everyone else?
I'm like everyone else. I'm from near Buffalo, New York.
Wow. So let's start there. What took you from Buffalo? Was it a straight route, or were there many places before Colorado Springs became home?
No, it went from college to a teaching job in Buffalo for 4 years, and I liked Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And it was time to go.
Winter?
And I just heard the call.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in that winter.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bother me.
Right.
I just felt the call to come out to Colorado. So packed up my van with everything I owned in it and landed here in 1981.
Wow. And did you know anybody in Colorado? What was it about Colorado that was calling you?
I think I can blame John Denver. Yeah, I'm sure of it.
Well, you and a lot of other people.
No kidding.
Well, when you and I spoke last week, Molly, I was thinking about another guest I've had on the show, Jan Black, a friend of mine from Salem, Oregon, whom I dearly love, who just really spoke about her path being, just following her voice from one chapter to the next. And as I was learning more about you last week, I felt very similar, that it was not a linear path. It was a very interesting path, but it was not something that 20 years ago you could have seen unfolding the way that it has.
Oh, no. If anyone had told me that right now I would have my own business that is about inspiring people to take a second look at the music they're listening to and how to consciously use it to shape their mood, their health, and perspective, I would have said that's not possible.
And here you are.
Here I am. My life is about Motown, Mozart, and the Herman's Hermits. I'm very shallow, Nathan. That's my life right now.
I give you big points for knowing who the Herman's Hermits are. I mean, that's a diminishing number of people, I think, as time goes on. So,
yes, we're a rare breed.
Indeed. So, where shall we begin our story? Which identity will we introduce you with?
Well, the sad thing is that I know a lot of people joke about telling the story of their life and joking about going back to their early childhood, but that's where I'm going to go.
Cool.
You had asked, where did this all begin?
Yeah.
I had no idea that the work that I do, which is about sound changes you. Mm-hmm. It's about how can you become the master of the soundtrack of your life, both metaphorically speaking and literally. Mm-hmm. I think that big question started back when I was a kid, baby. I was born with a lot of food sensitivities, but we didn't know. That's why I was sick. And so from out of the starting gate, I think I was trying to get in the driver's seat of my life and struggling with it. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, as many did, in a happy childhood home, great parents. And there was always things said repeatedly that can take root. Sorry, we're about to have a fire truck go by.
That's all right.
Not good in a wooded canyon that I live in. These things that our parents can say so innocently can take root. Roots get pretty deep, and pretty soon we start sprouting beliefs that we take on as our own. And there was a saying in my household. It kind of went, that Molly, she's an accident waiting to happen.
Oh, boy.
And it was said caringly, worried, I think a bit. I had a tendency to push the boundaries as a kid. I wasn't an extrovert at all, but certainly pushed the boundaries. And also added to these food allergies, always getting sick. I had a way of ruining vacations, which would prompt that Molly, she's an accident waiting to happen. But I also would often end up, as I grew up through my teen years, in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And it just wasn't my fault, Nathan. How's that for accountability?
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, okay. And as this I'm an accident waiting to happen started embedding in me, I noticed in my 20s, I became a little more conscious of that this belief from my family was there, and that maybe, just maybe, I had taken it on as my own. It scared me a little bit. I had a couple pretty dramatic things happen, and but it never dampened my spirit. I think I have a couple threads that have run through my life, probably have saved me because I heard the call. One is that I'm the Wander Archetype, the explorer, the seeker, and this saying in the family could never dampen that. I think the other thing I always knew is that I was a teacher to the core. It didn't always look like being a classroom teacher as I started off being, but as this thread ran through this crooked path I was on, being a teacher always seemed to show up no matter what career. And I had many. I heard many calls, and I wouldn't abruptly leave one to go to the other. It would get tied up with almost a nice bow before I moved on. But always something new would call me. And I had no idea. They all seemed unrelated. You know, I started as a teacher, and I would say it was during that time that a story happened that I'll go ahead and tell you that story. I mean, I can't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to twist your arm.
As I think it was 8th grade, the moon landing. Saw it on the little black and white TV. And I thought, I want to do that. My Wander spirit said, I want to do that. I want to go into space, thinking, well, no civilian will ever do that. Well, when I moved to Colorado in 1985, we got word that teachers could apply to be teacher in space. And I was beside myself. I thought, this baby's mine. I just had a sense. It wasn't an ego thing as much as this has my name on it. I am going to be that teacher that goes into space. So I filled out the very lengthy application, sent it in, and within a couple months received the first letter, said, congratulations, you've made the first cut. I was thrilled. I called home to give the good news, and my dad was very excited. Honey, that's great. My mother said, oh, no. You can't do this. You're an accident waiting to happen. And she said, this is dangerous. And I was really upset that she couldn't be happy for me, and gave her the little lecture of, that was then, this is now, this is what I really want. So I handled the next part of the application process, sent it in, and received a letter about 6 weeks later saying, congratulations, you've made the second cut. The dream was coming closer. I really felt strongly that it was my path. So called home again, foolishly. So I called home. Guess what? Made the second cut. Dad congratulated me. My mother said, you have to withdraw your name right now. And, from early on, this accident waiting to happen, as well as some other tensions between my mother and myself, it's like we had this battle of, is the universe a friendly place versus is it a scary, unpredictable, unsafe place? My mother had a lot of anxiety about the world, and so we always butted heads on this issue. And this was the big one. This was the big one. And I didn't need her support, but I wanted it. And so, gave her the little lecture about enough is enough. And this is my dream. And I think I'm going to get it. So I think you see where this is going. I didn't make the next cut. And I have to say that I was fairly sure that NASA and God had both made a very, very big mistake on this. That I did feel like it was my purpose. And in the next year, of course, Krista McAuliffe was chosen to go up and challenge her. And teaching, the morning of the launch, we had our kids in the library to watch it. And you know what happened. And when Challenger exploded and we were all stunned, as the rest of the world was, I remember my knees going weak. And everything flashed before me of what I had wanted, my clarity, supposed clarity that this had my name on it. So I'm going through this thought process when I hear an announcement over the PA system that I had a long distance phone call in the office. And I couldn't imagine who's calling now. Guess who? It was my mother. And you have to know my mom was a really good person. Just worried. And she needed me to know that she was right. And would I listen now? So it was an I told you so call, but not evil, as much as wanting to be right. And I was angry. I remember hanging up and thinking, damn, she won. She won. She won the biggest battle. And maybe I do make poor decisions. Maybe I am an accident waiting to happen. Maybe the universe isn't a friendly place. And I couldn't believe that was coming out of my thoughts and out of my mouth. And I remember that day going home, driving home, thinking, wow, this is big. And I didn't know at that point that I needed to make a choice, but I was going down a slippery slope of buying into her story. And that night, the thought, I'm an accident waiting to happen, went through my head, driving to school the next day. And that day we had a snowstorm. I taught north of Colorado Springs then at the Air Force Academy. And we were sent home early. And I waited a bit to leave. And when I did leave, the storm was pretty bad. And ended up, I was in a 60-car pileup on the interstate.
Wow.
On the way home. I mean, that's how fast we can manifest stories that are ingrained. And when we're on a slippery, emotional, energetic slope, I was a magnet for this dramatic moment. And scared the heck out of me. So after this accident, I took a leave of absence to get well. And I went to a spiritual teacher. And I know I thought it was my darkest moment. And it's funny, looking back, it led to my brightest. But I remember going to her saying, I'm scared. I think I am so powerful that I could attract an accident. I mean, either things are blowing up or things are crashing because I have this belief I'm an accident waiting to happen. I need help. And I remember that day she said, well, and, this teacher is so amazing. She was like, well, this is easy. You just get to choose. Are you a victim? Or are you going to get in the driver's seat? And I'm like, could it be this easy? And I remembered I choose my personal power. I choose the driver's seat. I choose health. And I think I spent the next 25 years truly buying that. I went from teaching to being a neuromuscular therapist. It was that work that got me back up on my feet. What I didn't know is it got me grounded. It put me in my body maybe for the first time in my life. I think that was the groundwork for what was to come. Had no idea. I thought I was just fascinated by it because it had helped me and I wanted to learn about the human body. From there, it wasn't a straight path leading here today, Nathan. I went from there to being the director of a nonprofit that trained service dogs for people with disabilities. Naturally, that would be my next step. Did that for 7 years. From there, I returned somewhat to education in a whole different sense, though. I worked with Peter Yarrow, Paul and Mary, in his Operation Respect program that taught conflict resolution to schools. And it was about making a major paradigm shift. And again, had no idea what this was preparing me for. I thought, look where I've landed. Never saw this coming. And it asked school districts to shift from being academic-based to being relationship-based. Are the kids' relationships working? Do their lives work? And the idea was, if their lives work, then the academics will follow. And it was proven again and again and again that this is true. So that was fascinating. And I brought that program home to Colorado, formed the Kind and Safe Schools Initiative. So really got immersed back in the school system. We lost funding for that. And to, of course, follow the next logical step, I became a mediator for the district attorney office. I ran their mediation program to keep misdemeanors out of court. Wow. And I remember the day, my first day there, I thought, how did I get here? how I was there and now I'm here. And again, I wasn't connecting the dots. It felt a little random, but it felt like what I needed to do. I don't think any of these steps, the call didn't come without my saying, yeah, this is what's next. And a lot of people kind of went from Molly's an accident waiting to happen to what's she going to do next? You know, when you're the seeker, you can get kind of defensive about your life. It takes some explaining until you quit. And you just spend time with people that track your thinking, or you don't answer those who say, what the heck are you thinking? So during this time at the district attorney office, I have to say the criminal justice system and I weren't a great match, but I loved the mediation part. So during my 7 years there, I became a screenwriter, naturally. And oh my gosh, I did it for fun. I've always been a writer. I was fascinated to write things for the big screen, but I thought it was a side thing that would keep me entertained during these years in the criminal justice system until it was time to go. I wasn't getting the call of what was next. So, wow, I would come home. It was the first job ever. I could come home at 5 o'clock and not bring work with me. So I could come home and start my writing until 11, 12 at night. And I started writing a screenplay about music. And what I didn't mention to you is growing up, especially I remember it most when the Beatles came out. I started noticing, it was back when, you'd get an album and put it on your little turntable and bring the needle over to play the same song over and over. For some listeners who don't know, we used to have these things called record players with needles. And I remember then noticing, yes, I loved music like many of us did and do, but I noticed I was experiencing my experience of music. Like, what's going on? Why do I love to do this? What I feel it viscerally. What's happening? And that question would not be answered, I didn't know, for about another 50 years. And 60 years, maybe. 70. I look young, don't I? So at the DA office writing these screenplays, I wrote a screenplay about music and how these characters' lives were impacted over 40 years of being involved in the arts, and most of them in music. And my writing coach said, and I was exploring at the time, totally unrelated, so I thought, a friend gave me a book on archetypes called The Hero Within by Carol Pearson. I was reading the book while traveling to LA for a friend's wedding. And I left the screenplay at home. I was kind of stuck on the screenplay, shelved it, went to LA while reading this book that's on the seat next to me. And I'm listening to these DJs on the radio. It's early morning, oldies station, the two DJs bantering back and forth. And they played 3 in a row of these oldies Motown. And they were all She Done Me Wrong songs by the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, Little Anthony and the Imperials, all your favorites. And after these 3 She Done Me Wrong songs, the DJs came on, and one of the DJs said, "Oh my God, those songs, it's my life." And the other DJ said, "I've known you for 20 years, and you're right. Your life's a train wreck, especially your love life. Those songs are your life. They are the soundtrack of your life." And it went ding, ding, ding. I thought, wow, I'm reading this book on archetypes. I had just finished the chapter on the victim archetype. And I thought, wow, this guy, his relationships live the victim archetype. Mm-hmm. And music gives those archetypes a voice. And I was no longer stuck on my screenplay. I went home. Everything was making sense for my characters, for me, myself personally. And I mentioned it to my writing coach. And she said, I think what you need to do is pull together a group of guinea pigs and find out if your theory's right. When music crawls inside people's heads, is it true that it evokes an archetype, or that your archetype, your behavior patterns that are active or right under the surface, are they who chooses your music? But you need to explore this. So I locked a bunch of friends in a room for a weekend, tested my theory, and came out at the end with people saying, "Oh my God, this changed my life." Like, really? So what started as research that day expanded over the next 10 years into a very refined workshop. I realized if I'm going to be messing with people's heads and archetypes and behavior patterns, I needed to really know what I was doing. So I went back for training in Joseph Campbell's work, mainly, The Hero's Journey and archetypes. And I refined this workshop to, my work has impacted thousands of people. I can't believe it. Some days I just can't believe this, that I have spent the last 10 years working with people on a topic they love. People love music, but rarely do we sit down and talk about why we love music. What's happening when music crawls inside our head? And if I listen to it consciously, how can I shift my state of mind from where I am now to maybe something more productive, where it impacts my mood, my health, the cells in my body, and my whole spirit? Mm-hmm. And that's where my research took me, in all of those areas. And I have to say, this whole path has been a gift. You know, the whole I'm an accident waiting to happen. I never would have become the seeker looking for, well, where is my power? What does it take to get in the driver's seat? And, you know, it's funny, when I didn't get the challenger position, my dream had been to go into space. I wrote a curriculum. That's what got me the first 2 cuts in the program. I wrote a really beautiful curriculum of getting a perspective while up there to bring back to children of the world of how we're all one. And I thought I needed to go into space to do that. It's funny, I look at my work with archetypes in the hero's journey and how we all share this collective unconscious approach to being here on this earth. And I realized I never had to leave the planet to do that. And if my purpose, that thread has been running through the whole time, I didn't know it. I wasn't listening for that, but I listened for what the next small step was each time. And I answered the call, much to my mother's and to many people in my life's dismay of, where's she going now? You're doing what? You're doing what with dogs? How does that fit? I'm glad I didn't listen, because I've never been happier. I know my purpose is being a teacher. It's not necessarily just working with Motown and the Beatles and Beethoven, but this is my path for that purpose right now. I haven't heard another call yet. I'm hoping I can stick with this one till at least the end of your show. And I am in awe of how we're directed. And at the time, it feels so haphazard and sometimes lost. And it certainly wasn't a rags to riches, but it was a questioning to great joy. And working with people's behavior patterns. And of course, I have to work on my own. I can't ask them to go someplace I'm not willing to go. I, for moments at a time, know what it means to be in the driver's seat. And then I go unconscious, as everyone does. And then I come back and go, oh, let's get back in the driver's seat. I think I quit looking for a permanent position there, which was big for me. I think we go to sleep, and then we wake up, and then we go on autopilot, and then we wake up. It's that when we wake up, do we know what tune our life is singing? Do we know what our tune is? I would say my purpose always has been that people don't die with their songs still inside. And how I've done it for the last 60 years has changed dramatically. And I really like the one I'm doing now, I have to say.
So I would love to hear you get more into the nuts and bolts on. I'm hearing my voice echoing a lot, which I'm surprised about because you have your earbuds in. How is that possible?
Yeah, you are cutting in and out a little bit. I wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird.
Are we good?
Let's keep talking, see what happens.
Okay. How is that?
So, yeah, it seems like it's been solved somehow. Okay. So thanks for whatever you did. So, yeah, can you parachute us into the workshop? I mean, and it won't be, it'll just be a taste. And people still will need to go to the workshop to get the full meal deal. But I'm quite curious. Being a musician, music having played such an enormous role in my life, I'm very, very curious about this and wanting to know more about this myself.
Yeah. Much of the work I do in my workshops, I do talks, I do keynotes, I'll do shorter presentations, but my core workshop is called Tuned In, Connecting to the Soundtrack of Your Life. And it's a 2-day deep dive into your own hero's journey. When you get the call, something happens in your life. How does your victim respond? How does your explorer respond? How does your warrior kick in? At what point does your caregiver and your return to innocence take the wheel? And it's an exploration as to how you show up in your life and what music has given it voice. And from here on out, how are you going to consciously use music, if you choose to, and most do, to shift your state of mind from whether one archetype to another, or if you don't name archetypes, just from one state of mind to something that gives you momentum to a better moment. We have such a tendency to listen to music in the background so haphazardly. You know, it's random, it's muzak. And this sort of it clearly places music front and center. I love what John Bon Jovi said once. He was interviewed by Oprah. This was years ago when I was just putting this workshop together. And Oprah asked him, she said, you know, John, before I have you sing your new song, which was probably It's My Life or something, she said, I want to talk about just music in general. You know, and that's so rare that we do that, especially when a singer is on a show. We just go, and here's their next song. Yeah. And she said, what is it, John, that causes us to respond? Why do we love music? Why is it so important in our culture, in every culture? And he said, you know, I think music is just starting to be honored for the goddess that she is. It's as though she is placed front and center in our lives as this goddess. And it's not so much what music is worthy of listening to. It's not about telling you this is worth listening to. He said, I think it's about our becoming worthy of the music. And I thought, wow, to look at music as an entity unto herself, to not something that's on a CD or an album or an 8-track, but she herself is an archetype. She herself is an entity. And how do we honor her? Well, I think the best way we can honor it is first to recognize her as a gift for our psyche, a gift for our soul, and to listen for the message she's giving. And sometimes it's in the lyrics, often it's in the tempo. Sometimes it's, you know, as you well know, being a musician, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we listen to a piece of music and we can't quite pinpoint why it just reached into our heart and grabbed it. It is all those things, the lyrics, maybe the tune, but it's more than that. It's something bigger. And I think just to first recognize her is the purpose of my work. No longer look at it as a side haphazard hobby, but a gift front and center in our lives. After we do that in the workshop, after it's established of how we're going to honor her, we look at the various times in our lives that we've been in a certain pattern of behavior. Life happens and we get sometimes on autopilot. Sometimes we're so surprised it's a new way of being. There aren't too many times that we can't tie music to that period of our life. Right. Either specific music or an artist that people can come up with like this. And it shaped us. It affected us chemically at the time. Yeah. It got embedded in the medial prefrontal cortex. Though music doesn't just light up the medial prefrontal cortex, if we have a memory with it, it lights up many parts of the brain. And I find it fascinating that they don't know why. They can't quite pinpoint why. There's a mystery left to music that I love. And though they're uncovering more and more through science, what it's doing for us, they're still not sure why. Joseph Campbell had a great theory that we go over in the workshop, and I'd have to kill you if I told you. You'd have to come to the workshop to find out. I think he's right on. I'm just going to leave that with you. And so what we do is just start linking who we are with what has given it voice, what music. So therefore, if we are in a certain place, whether we're lost, whether we're confident, whether we're happy-go-lucky, wherever we are in a certain moment, what music would it take to, one, just to identify it? People have breakthroughs like, oh my God, there's a name for where I've been. Archetypes, which is just universal patterns of human behavior. People love identifying. If you've ever done Myers-Briggs, then you know archetypes, but we expand it way beyond that. And just people identifying, wow, when I'm at work, I'm in complete warrior mode. Go, 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 get it done. Where there's a will, there's a way. I have a goal, have to reach the deadline. That's warrior mode. If we come home, if we drive home in warrior mode, if we don't shift, and we arrive to our partner, our children, our dogs, our fish, in warrior mode, oh, we're real fun. We show up like, oh, glad you're home. If we can't shift to another archetype, the lover, the mother archetype, the father archetype, the return to innocence, if we can't find a new way of being when we're in a new environment with people looking to us for something meaningful, if we show up on autopilot, our life has become monotonous. We are ineffective. So first people look in these workshops at, oh, that's me. Got it. Whatever archetype it is. Some people are stuck in return to innocence and can never get serious and get assertive about things. I mean, so it can go the other way. And then they look at, so what music stirs my soul to either shift me out of that and into something new, or if wherever I am is really beneficial, how do I sustain it? How do I gain momentum? I love Abraham Hicks' work with, it takes 17 seconds of momentum toward a better feeling thought. And if you add another 17 seconds and another 17 seconds, you have just gained more momentum to a new state of mind. Well, if you think about it, if you were to put on certain music, whether it's the message or just how it makes you feel, forget the lyrics, just how it makes you feel, you could capture many of those 17-second segments and string them all together, and you have just gained momentum toward a better place for you to be. And so it's just getting people used to that your stack of CDs, your stack of vinyls, however old you are, your playlist is a music pharmacy. And it's easy to buy into because they realize it's just true. I don't have to buy. By the time we're a couple hours into the workshop, I don't need to convince anybody of anything. They look at it with a whole new perspective and say, you mean this has been here all these decades of my listening to music? Why didn't anyone tell me? I could have put it to work for me a lot sooner. So I'm telling people, we are looking at their lives and at this gift called music from a whole new perspective, and looking at it for the gift that it is, and allowing ourselves to play with it in a whole new way and create a music pharmacy. I think we do it naturally. In many ways, people put together playlists for different, I don't know about you, but if I'm going on the road, I'm grabbing the Eagles. They're going with me. It's my explorer archetype music. We all have our playlists. But rarely do we say, you know, I think emotionally I'm in trouble right now. And we might have a certain artist we would put on. But what if you could arrange a playlist in such a way that you shifted your state of mind, gained enough momentum to just go up the emotional guidance scale? It's a list of emotions from 1 to 22. So if you're number 15, let's say that's anger, and it would bring you relief if you could just get to worry or frustration. What music would it take? Because to go from anger to bliss, it's probably not going to happen. But if you can get from anger to frustration or worry, or that would be relief to the cells of your body, to your psyche, and to your spirit. And rarely do we have at our fingertips a certain grouping of songs to do that. So my encouragement is to create a music pharmacy that does that, and you have it ready at all times. Just like instead of an aspirin, you push play.
Right.
You know?
So you encourage people to do that at the workshop, because I was going to say that what I'm curious about is music is so personal. The same song, while there are archetypes, I completely get that. But you and I could listen to the same song and have a completely different experience.
Nathan, you're so right. You're so right.
So how do you deal with that in the workshop?
Well, in the workshop, I think of it as a template. I know I've set it up that songs with lyrics, that it's to make a point. Do you see where these lyrics generate the spirit of this behavior pattern? Right. But I make it really clear that, however, when you listen to this song, I could play a song and say, oh, Nathan, you've got to hear this. It is such a great song. And I'm thinking the lyrics.
Right.
But you say, I've heard that song. That came out in, 1984. And that was a rough year for me. And I know you love this song, but I just associate it. My medial prefrontal cortex remembers that was a bad year. And I can only associate that summer with that song. Sorry. It doesn't do it for me, Mo. So you're so right. It's so personal. So everyone during the workshop knows what my intention is. And the idea is for them to go home to the music they love, whether it's classical, rock, country, gospel, and apply the music they love to the formula. They definitely leave with a formula that allows them to create or have the intention of creating playlists that will serve them personally. So I think you bring up such a good point.
And how many archetypes do you work with? Is it 6?
6. We touch on a few others, but we work with 6 from Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey.
Okay.
Yeah. The victim, the explorer, which we call the wander, the warrior, the altruist, return to innocent, and magician. And it is so fun. It's so fun to look at the dance we do among all of them. And when we consciously choose to put one into action, they're always vying for position.
Right.
And to really activate 1 or 2 or 3, I mean, we never live in just one, to start being aware of what we're doing is life-changing.
Yeah. And making that conscious choice. I want to get out of this frame of mind. And so I consciously choose to invoke this archetype by playing this music.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you must have some incredible stories about people who do that and then share what happens as a result.
I do. Oh, you want me to pick a couple?
Sure.
Let's see. Well, I would say the majority of people, what resonates most frequently is this running their business or their job or their family in warrior mode. We just get very hyped up. We're goal-oriented. We have to go from here to here. We have time deadlines. Probably what resonates with most people is this shifting, being awake enough to know that this drive does not serve when I get home and meet my lover, my children, my dog. And so the quickest action people seem to take after the workshop, I'll run into them and they'll say, the first thing I did is I created a playlist to transition me from work to home. They have no problem going from home to work unless they don't want to go to work, and then you do a fired up power playlist. But we all, I think, have our power up music, but we don't have usually that shift. But I can think of a woman, I do a lot of cancer center workshops, and the workshop itself doesn't shift too much. Our focus does look toward what the cancer journey has meant. But I remember there was a woman sitting straight ahead of me. I'll point like that. She's sitting right there, Nathan. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the Wander Archetype. And the Wander Archetype is that part of our spirit that calls us when we feel a need for expanding into something new. It doesn't necessarily mean packing up the car and leaving on a trip. It can mean it's time to that yoga class you've always said you're going to sign up for. It's time to do it. It's the part of our spirit that says, I've always wanted to research, and you fill in the blank. And so either we take a course on a class, we go to the internet, but something inside says, this would light me up if I were to do this. So we hear this call, and a lot of times we shut it down. I don't have time. I don't have time for that. That sounds fun. Maybe next summer. And our spirit, the more we do it, the more our spirit dies if we don't answer the call of our inner wander. And it can be looking at the walls in your house and saying, all this off-white has to go. This wall's going to be purple. This one's going to be lime green. If our spirit needs a total reorganization, and we do it through color or through design, that's your wanderer spirit. So there's all sorts of ways we can answer. But a lot of people, it is packing up and going fishing, getting out of town to the mountains, to the beach, whatever it is. So I remember this woman sitting there, and I'm talking about, it's also our bucket list. Though I don't think we have to wait till we're dying to look at what do we want to, what is calling us. So in the middle of a group discussion, she went, oh my gosh. And we all looked like, what's wrong? She said, I get it. I get that she had blended her family with another man's family, and they had 10 children. Wow. Yeah. And a beautiful marriage. And they had been together for quite a few years. And she said, when I married him, he was strongly the wanderer. And what I've noted, I had mentioned to them that depression is widely caused by a suppressed Wander archetype. And she said, I've been noticing, and he's been noticing, this flatness in himself in the last year. And we're happy, our kids are good. We didn't know what it was. And she said, this is it. This marriage, the overwhelm and the chaos and the wonderfulness of it has totally absorbed us. And he has not been answering the call of his wander. She said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, get him in this workshop, because you can't go home and just say, it's your wander, honey. And I said, he almost has to discover it from the inside out, or he won't answer the call. Sure enough, he was in my next workshop, sitting in almost the same place. And in the middle of wander, he went, oh my goodness. He got it. He got it. She called me that summer and said, I don't know whether to hate you or thank you, but he just left for 2 weeks. with his brother to go fishing, left me here with all the kids. So I would say moments like that, common. I hear from people saying, I get it. I get it. To not answer the wander scares people. They realize what it's doing to their spirit. Others are people I realize have not acknowledged themselves for defining moments in their life where their warrior has stepped up to either make a stand. It might have been a boisterous stand. It could be a quiet fight. But something they did once, twice, 100 times, we don't always say, wow, that was powerful, and acknowledge ourselves. And I find a lot of people almost getting teary during the Wander Archetype or the Warrior Archetype exploration, saying, I'm pretty kick-ass. I never, ever gave myself credit for it because I wasn't always, but I remember when I became that. And, or other people saying, it's pretty lame still for me. And I've got to put a fire under my butt. And so it's those moments, I think, that I think, oh, they can never not know. They can never pretend they don't know when they walk out of here. My work is done, but they can never pretend they don't know. And I do run into people years later saying, oh, changed everything. And I don't think, when you're in the middle of a workshop, I'm sure you've been in enough of them, that when you are drinking the Kool-Aid, as I like to put it, you buy into the idea and you're hyped about it and you're excited about it. But what do you do with it when you go home?
Right.
Well, music is always there to remind us. Oh, yeah, that's what I do with it. We don't need to pull out our notebooks and look at our notes from the tuned in workshop. The next song on the list will continually remind us of where we've been, what patterns it set, does it work? It's not about what's right or what's wrong. Archetypally, you can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done, but you can look at what's not working. And I think music reminds us of certain eras of our life or of certain lessons in our lives. And once you've taken the workshop, certain pieces of music will bring us back to center. It brings our wandering back to center. It aligns us once again. That's the gift of music. I like in the workshop, I have a metaphor of that our tone is our personality and our tune is the core of who we are, our soul. And that our tone goes out and lives our life out in the world, and it can get chaotic and we can get lost. We can get very busy. And at some point, we say things like, oh, I'm so tired. Or someone will say, you don't seem quite yourself. What's up? And it's a cue to go, my tone has wandered too far from the mothership. And we can use music to bring ourselves home. And we do it. We don't know that's what we're doing. But it's to bring ourselves home to the mothership. And if we can consciously do it, we think to put on music, or it's not just music. I mean, it's whatever lights us up. Is it putting our hands in clay? Is it dance? It's usually the arts that aligns our tune or our tone back with our tune.
Yeah.
So.
I have a question to ask you, but before I do, I just, I'm sure you've heard this story, and if you haven't, please use it because I think it bears what you're.
I love stories.
You're sharing, and I don't know what I don't know the origin of the story. I've just heard it from several sources, but the story about this particular, I'll say African tribe. I could be completely off base about that as well, but in some part of the world, I believe this continues that when someone is to be born, they are given a song. You know this story?
I've heard bits and pieces of it. Please tell it.
Well, what's amazing to me is it completely embodies everything you're saying. So for us as Westerners, or us, in let's say North America or in, the Western world, we are accessing the archetypes through music that we grew up with, that resonated in us at various points in our lives. The thing about this story that amazes me, the one that I'm going to share as best I can with you, is a woman is pregnant, and she dreams the song. So when the child is born, the song is sung to the child, so the child realizes that it is his or her song. And at significant moments in the child's life, so rites of passage, whatever, the song is sung. When the child is married, their song is sung, the partner's song is sung, right? It's incredible. And what I thought was most amazing is when something has gone wrong with the person, they've transgressed, they've caused harm, they've whatever. What happens is the belief is that they've forgotten their song. So they stand in the center of the community, and the community sings their song
powerful.
to remind them who they are.
Wow.
I was absolutely floored when I heard that. So as you're speaking, I'm thinking, okay, so this is our modern adaptation of that.
Yeah.
But I just love hearing that this awareness has been in us for millennia. And, we are needing to remember, we are needing to reconnect to it.
Yeah. Beautiful story.
Yeah.
I encourage, not part of the workshop is to encourage. It can't happen in the workshop because it's a long process to do after, but create the soundtrack of your life.
Right.
And it's, some people think, oh yeah, I get it. It'd be a list of songs I like through my life. Yeah, that would be really cool. Like, no. No, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It is a compilation of music that tells the story of your life. It reflects phases of your life where you choose the kingpin song from that phase. What happened in your early 20s? What song fits there? What happened when you first started your family? What song tells that story? And it doesn't have to be a song from that year or that phase. It could be a song that came out last week, and you hear it and you go, oh my God, that artist read my diary. That's me. So you can plug in whatever you want. But in the end, you have a soundtrack that when you play it back, I cannot tell you how powerful it is to hear your story. It's like an auditory photo album of your life. I know for many years, 27 years, I had a sleep disorder. And when it finally healed in my mid 40s, kind of this miraculous time of being, it's funny, I was finally awake. It was when I put my soundtrack together. Brahms' Lullaby is at age 45, that phase of my life. And some people will look at the names of the songs in my soundtrack and they'll go, wait, shouldn't that have been when you're a baby? Like, no, only I know why it's where it is, and why when it gets to that place, I am overwhelmed with gratitude for the journey that if not for the sleep disorder, I wouldn't be where I am today. And when it gets to Brahms' Lullaby, it's sort of this period at the end of that sentence of my life. It's like, yeah. And then it goes on to the next. Create the soundtrack is pretty powerful. Pretty powerful.
So this is an assignment that you give people who attend the workshop to then complete in whatever time frame. And so is there a kind of a general... I realize how open-ended this could be, but do you find that it kind of, do people come up with hours of music?
It's so funny. Yes. I have the same woman who went, oh, that's my husband.
Yeah.
That couple, they each have like a 5 CD set of their life.
Wow.
I guess when you have 10 kids, you got to
really.
Quite the journey. So we laugh like that. They narrowed it down from like 100 songs. I have gotten mine down to a 2 CD set, but I made myself create just 18 songs that captures all of it because I wanted to know I could do it. Mm. But I like my 2 CD set because it leaves room for Maggie May and all the songs I didn't want to discard, because it's not about plugging in your favorite songs. Right. So many of them are. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fun game. Yeah. And it's funny, there's a woman who, her name is Sherry. I won't say her last name, even though she's given me permission to do stuff. She went home after the workshop. She has 3 PhDs in areas of nutrition. And so she's done a lot of personal work, but she had never done it with music. And so she went home right away to start. A lot of people wait. A lot of people don't do it. Mm-hmm. They usually start with making their music pharmacy to change their state of mind rather than the soundtrack. But a lot of it, my phase of 0, and her mom died like 30 years before she took this workshop. Mm. And she knew her aunt had her mother's voice singing these lullabies on a reel-to-reel somewhere in the attic. So she called her aunt, and oh my goodness, I don't know if I can find that. Well, she did. And she took that reel-to-reel, found these songs, had it digitized, and sent her a CD. So she now has her mother's voice in the soundtrack of her life. That's probably the most profound I've heard. And she called me after she spent like 2 months putting this together. She was doing a road trip up to Hood River. And she was in Wyoming. She called me from Wyoming, sobbing, saying, oh my God. I waited till I crossed over the Colorado line into Wyoming. I popped in the soundtrack of my life, and I'm sitting here sobbing. I am feeling like all my archetypes are in my back seat, letting me know, job well done. Job well done, Sherry, that this life has been worthwhile, and you've done a good job. And she said, I had no idea the power of this soundtrack, of what it would mean to me. So that was fun. That was a fun phone call to have someone sobbing. That was good.
Yeah. So just because I'm going to do this.
Oh, good.
I'm absolutely going to do this.
You need to take this workshop, don't you?
Yes, I do. So the first is the soundtrack of your life, and the other one is putting together your, what did you call
music
it?
Pharmacy.
Music pharmacy. So again, I realize this is kind of a silly question because one size does not fit all, but do you find that will people come up with the same thing, like 20 songs that will be in for the warrior archetype, or do they kind of settle into a certain number or amount of time?
Here's what I did. After years of participants saying, Molly, I get it. I get that I get stuck in this state of mind. I can get really stuck in worry, and that just a moment of feeling content would be glorious. I wish I had time to create a playlist to get me from worry to contentment, but I don't have time. Why don't you do it? And after years of hearing this, finally one day I said, yeah, why don't I? It took me a year. So I have created a product that you didn't know this, that
no, I didn't.
I have available, where I have taken the 22 emotional categories from David Hawkins' Power versus Force.
Okay. I thought you were going to say from Abraham's book,
She took the list, I believe, from David Hawkins. And,
okay.
Yeah, I think Esther used that model. And so I'm using both of their theory. I'm using David Hawkins' chart of emotion from bliss down to hopelessness and despair. And I'm applying Abraham Hicks' idea of 17 seconds added to 17 seconds to gain the momentum to move from one emotion up to a better feeling emotion. So what I did is I created 11 categories of emotion, from emerging from the pits up to attitude of gratitude is the highest frequency of playlists. And in every category are 2 suggested playlists, and then a library that if you don't like what I chose, you can go down, and it's organized by genre, and it's about 60 to 80 songs to choose just in that category. If you can't think of a song to save your life, what people seem to do, and then next to every single song is an Amazon and an iTunes download button where you can go and sample the song and buy it if you want. What most people do, and the goal is this, not to take the 2 playlists I've suggested, though I bet some people have. It's to listen to these, get a feel for the vibrational frequency of the emotion in this category. So if it's on hopelessness and despair, what does music sound like that would lift you just enough out of the pits, out of the soup, that you could buy maybe that there's hope? You don't want to go right to hope, or your nervous system will say, well, that's a crock when you're that low. So what would it take to get from here just to here? So one list is that. Another takes you up further, another up further. There's one called I'm So Over You. No, really. For those, it's those angry, battle has been won, I'm myself again kind of music. After a breakup or after a job loss, when you're back on your feet again, there's some pretty powerful songs that say, you didn't get me. So there's still some anger in it, but there's recovery. Those songs are fun. And then it goes all the way up to lists about optimism, getting fired up to do something that is going to require energy, and then up to gratitude. So I have 11 of these categories, all with song suggestions. And what most people, the idea is create one playlist out of all of these with 4 to 5 songs. You can go more if you want, but you don't need to. That gives you about 15 minutes of raising your vibration from here to here and gaining momentum that you could likely sustain now in thought, because it's hard to keep your thoughts going with momentum, but music takes it over for you. It's amazing what a message in music can do. And it's, though most of mine have lyrics, there are some that don't. I mean, as you well know, there is a tempo and there are melodies that create a chemical reaction in us and creates momentum. I mean, you can do it with, and a lot of people look at this and say, okay, I've listened to about 10 of these songs, sampled them. I get it. Now I have my own library that I'm going to pull from using the feeling. I get it now. And they use 3 or 4 of their own songs, 4 or 5 of their own, or a combination of my suggestions and theirs. It's, like you said, so personal. What speaks to you when you're in this state of mind? What would make you say, I'd like a better feeling than this? And I think I see the way. What music says, here's a way. Because we all respond so differently.
Wowee.
Fun, huh?
Fantastic. Well, yeah. I'd love to experience that.
I'll send you the kit. How about that?
Oh,
I'd love to get your feedback on it.
I say yes. Right. I would love to receive it. So it sounds to me like we should include. So is all the information about the kit, etc., on your site, mollylord.com?
Yes. It'll be on my homepage up at the menu. You'll see song kits. Yeah.
Okay, great. And should we include David's book and Abraham's book as
reference? And you bet. Power versus Force, fascinating book. David Hawkins.
Okay.
And
Versus Force.
you know,
And ask it.
well,
Go ahead.
Abraham, what do you think? What's her latest?
Well, I'm just thinking asking it is given because it's like
Yeah.
David's, but I don't know if there's something that you're
No,
thinking
no.
instead of that. Or,
I think that's good. I think that's good.
okay.
I don't know if it includes the momentum that she now speaks of.
Right.
However, how can you go wrong with any of their books?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been a huge fan of him, her, them for a long time.
The collective.
So, yeah. Well, gee whiz, Molly. See what I mean? Did that time fly by?
And there's
or what?
so much more, but I'm
Wow.
going
Yeah.
to button up now. This was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel complete? Is there anything that we didn't say that you want to make sure we do include in this? I mean, I will mention these. Well, let me do this right now. So for those of you who are listening or who didn't get this right from the beginning, mollylord.com, MOLLYLORD.com. You'll get all this information on that site. And we just thought that it would be a good idea to also include 2 books that we have referenced, which kind of played their part in helping Molly shape the music soundtrack and music pharmacy ideas. And the Herman's Hermits.
Make sure that's in there.
Are David Hawkins' Power versus Force and Abraham Hicks' Ask and It Is Given. So shortly I will be creating a link to the replay of this show, and in the YouTube, underneath the YouTube video, I will include links to Molly's site and to those 2 books. Is there anything else?
I think there, I love Rumi's. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. If music is one of yours, and that's a way that you could make sure you don't die with your songs still inside, I would say check out different ways to use the arts to feed your soul. My way is one way. There are so many people out there that are enhancing people's lives through the arts. I would just say grab it. It's doing more than we think.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.
What a lovely ride. Well, I look forward to getting that kit.
It's coming to you.
Excellent. I will be. I will give it a lot of attention. I'm excited about this. I can see how. Well, I'm excited about creating my own lists, and I bet you've never heard this before. Maybe you have. I'm also interested in creating songs.
I know. I've heard
that would be in each of those categories.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I like it. Maybe you could be a guest artist for me. Once in a while, I have a guest artist. Peter Yarrow came.
Okay.
Michael Johnson. A Bluer Than Blue. You're too young to remember Bluer Than Blue.
I remember Bluer Than Blue.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll have to talk about that, you being a guest artist. I don't always have live music. Usually it's recorded music, but when I have a live artist, I weave their music in with some of the recorded, and it's pretty lovely.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
door's open. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun. Bye-bye.
And thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. And the replay of this will be on. It's Monday, 5:16 Pacific time. As I say this, it'll be on within the next. It'll be online. The replay will be online sometime within the next few hours. So please share it with all your friends who couldn't be with us in real time. And Meryl, as always, God bless your cotton socks. Always happy to have you here with us, Meryl. Thank you, and thanks for helping to spread the word about the show.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Peace and blessings.
Stay tuned, so to speak.
Indeed.
Bye.